Hello everybody, Larson here, and oh my stars and garters, it has been a long time since I've done a proper video instead of just me rambling on a live stream for 2 hours. And to kick things off in this newfound font of originality, we're gonna discuss something I've discussed several times on the stream and I've done a video on. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, your eyes have not deceived you. The Legend of Zelda movie is apparently underway. It is going to be directed by a not exceptional but competent enough director. It's going to be produced by an absolute dingus that produced Morbius, and apparently some woman with horn-rimmed problem glasses is also involved to some degree. And these fine people are trying to manage the film adaptation of a franchise whose fandom is currently in a low-level state of civil war. The civil war is going on between two factions, the grizzled, crusty old men, and I include myself in that group, who love a Campbellian heroic monomyth of sword, sorcery, Shintoism, and masculine valor. And the new fans, the newfound chemically castrated tourists and flaming catamites who believe that the game franchise is a shrieking gay pride parade sent around a prancing little faggot boy who wears bedlas and whose greatest heroic action is taking a big fat cock up the neg hole. So needless to say, you've got quite the Sisyphean task ahead of you in trying to placate all these groups and make a decent movie. It is such a difficult task that some might say you won't ever be able to achieve it at all, and the movie will be mired in the development hell of creative differences and never actually get made. Well, here's hoping. Just kidding. I am an old school fan of the franchise. As I have stated multiple times, I had a rather unhappy childhood, and the Legend of Zelda franchise was one of the few lights in the darkness I had to keep me going in trying times. So the franchise is very important and meaningful to me. I played pretty much all the games up until about 2014. I fell off the wagon, so to speak, because I had to do stupid big boy things like getting jobs and having lots of meaningless sex. I've read most of the mangas and other supplemental materials, and I am deeply, deeply ashamed to admit, once engaged with the fan creative side of things. But hey, at least I wasn't a Camp Hyrule counselor on Nintendo.com like some people we could name. Ronda Rousey, cough. Anyway, apropos of absolutely nothing beyond being a slightly smarter than average middle-aged man who has played many video games and watched many films and has done some very, very low-level acting, script doctoring, and publishing himself, here are some ideas of how you can make this movie not suck. Or should I say movies, because they've basically greenlit a trilogy hinging on the success of the first movie. To start, let's go over the basic narrative structure for a trilogy that I came up with in my stream. Okay, basically, my first Zelda movie would be basically an adaptation of Ocarina of Time with elements of Twilight Princess. It's Link versus Ganondorf. It's what everybody wants. It's what everybody expects. But, we put some balls into it. We show the sages dying. We show, the death and destruction. We show that Link is essentially, a child soldier forced into fighting. As Link draws the Master Sword, he suddenly gets, all the memories of, all the previous reincarnations of the hero. So basically, he has, thousands of years of PTSD just slamming into him all at once. And he gets his own shit as his friends die around him. In the end, he wins the day. He kills Ganondorf for the time being, or Ganon, I should say. But he feels like it's not really definitively done. He felt, as he got all these memories, he was going to break the cycle, and he failed. He failed to break the cycle, which is a major theme of my adaptation, my idea, that, you can succeed at being, the hero, but also be a complete failure in the long run. Basically, that's sort of a major theme of my idea. He succeeds at being the hero, but he kind of fails in his own personal responsibilities, because all he wanted to do was, just live a normal life, be a family man. The gods basically weaponize him, and he's kind of kept out of, just living a normal life. That's what he wants. So, he wins the day, Ocarina of Time style. Much like Shane, Navi flies off to die, and Link feels, a bit hollow inside. He won the day, but he feels like he's just going to have to fight this battle again, maybe a couple hundred years in the future. Is he happy? He kind of wanders off. Who knows? Oh, and by the way, much like James Bond, Link is going to just mack it on multiple women because, by God, he has to. Not full-on sex, but he's just going to make out with them, give him a nice pat on the ass, James Bond style. So anyway, the second movie will be based on the games that don't have Ganon, the ones that are more surreal and existentialist, games like Majora's Mask and Link's Awakening, predominantly. The second movie opens up with Link essentially being like John Rambo, like a teenage John Rambo. He's a PTSD-afflicted loser. He's just kind of wandering around. He's going nowhere in life. He's getting into barroom brawls. In fact, the opening of the movie would be him getting into a barroom brawl kicking the shit out of a bunch of guys before getting blindsided with a cast iron frying pan and being thrown out into the gutter. He has nothing other than his cloak, his sword, and his horse. He is miserable. He doesn't know for sure that Navi is dead, but he's kind of wandering around looking for her, maybe just looking for something to occupy his time. Much like the beginning of Majora's Mask, he is blindsided by the Skull Kid and the two fairies. They rob him. They put him in the little, scrub body. And, so it becomes sort of like this, kind of like a masculine sort of conflict between Link and the Skull Kid. The two forms of, unrestrained boyish thumos. And over the course of the story, Link, sort of matures and he develops. His journey through the alternate world down the rabbit hole is essentially like him going through a Buddhist hell, essentially. A parallel universe where everything sucks and he has to right the wrongs. And in doing so, in healing the world, he heals himself. We see sort of the unrestrained, boyish masculinity represented by the Skull Kid and the entity within the mask, and sort of, the responsibility of a real man, even though he's a child. So here we see, here we would really, I feel like the whole franchise has like sort of, it really shows its oriental, I feel the franchise really kind of shows its, oriental bona fides throughout the series, but here I would really kind of go hard on that sort of, Buddhist and Shintoist themes. I would portray Termina as essentially, DU, the Chinese underworld, a Buddhist hell. Majora is very much a sort of like evil kabuki man, so to speak. So, it's, this whole journey of Thumos and the maturation, kind of Buddhist, and by healing the wrongs, kind of going through, becoming the fierce deity, again, note the Buddhist influence, that is sort of representing the, the maturation of the man inside, even though he's still a teenager. So, in the end of the second movie, Link's finally, he's chill, he's finally sort of, come to terms with himself. We'd also kind of go over him struggling with his, burgeoning teenage sexuality, about, which girl is going to go back to Hyrule and plow. And, things seem to be better at the end of the movie. Then the third movie be largely an original story with elements of Adventure of Link, Hyrule Warriors, and leading into Twilight Princess. Some of you know where I'm going with this. So, we fast forward about 20 years or so. Link is now a middle-aged man, 30, 35 or so. And yes, I do feel he settles down on the ranch, and, he knocks boots with everybody's favorite big titty farm girl. He's got kids. Basically, I would see it as he's got one kid who's like 7, another kid who's, like a toddler, and then another kid on the way. So, he's finally happy. He's at peace. He mostly doesn't have like PTSD flashbacks anymore. He's finally happy. He's tilling the soil. He's contributing to the world in ways that are not combative. He's finally happy. Then, just like the plot of Adventure of Link, there's still like remnant, savage humanoid war bands who want to revive, the Dark Lord. And they have to do blood sacrifices to do so. So they're just, they're just laying waste. They're raiding the countryside. They're kicking ass. So Link has to go to war one last time. He's, it's kind of like Unforgiven, right? He straps on the sword. He's like, he's a raid captain, just like in Hyrule Warriors. It's going to be like a squad movie, basically. He's got a squad of dudes. I don't know who they are yet. We'll deal with that later. And they go off to war. It's like, I'm also seeing a lot of influence from the old World War II movie Baton, where it's like, 12 men sending against an army. It's a squad movie. I'm also kind of seeing sort of like a disjointed, sort of like, flashbacks, something like Oppenheimer, where we see, him kind of struggling with his emotional issues, with which his lovely wife kind of helps him with, as he's, training the guys, leading them into battle. And, the boys kick all the ass, but, they're slowly picked off one by one, one by one, one by one. Then in the end, it's basically Link fighting this sort of like, Boko Blin, Messiah, who he was leading the army. He wants to capture Link himself for the blood sacrifice. This, Moblin Messiah tells him that, have you ever considered that I might be destined as a hero, just like you, child of destiny? Link has a sudden, horrifying realization. Could it be that the Triforce is a bloodthirsty demiurge, which is, perpetuating this endless cycle of violence for its own demented purposes? Could it be that the gods are in fact evil? But he says, fuck that, fighting for home and hearth, for the children. By the end of the final fight, like, Link's, like, arms are broken, his eyeball has been literally, like, clubbed out of his head. He's, but he wins the day, right? And now he's got to go home. And begin his son's training. His son is 7 years old. It's time for him to be a squire. So, literally, he's the last man standing. He's staggering home. And I'm seeing, like, it's like the ending of Gladiator where Maximus is, like, dying and he sees, the hills of Elysium. He staggers home. He barely makes it, like, 100 feet. He drops to his knees, coughs up blood, falls on his face. He's dead. No music. Pan up. Just see the charnel pit of blood and guts and everything. Pan out. Black screen. Violin cover of the original Legend of Zelda theme. End credits. Boom. Oscar winner. Boy, nothing makes me happier than being able to slap in pre-recorded dialogue without the need for editing. So now that we've discussed a basic narrative that could work, let's go over a few fine touches and tweaks that we really need to make this movie be the best it could be. Number 1. It ought to be lushly and beautifully 2D animated. Well, we missed the boat on that one. You've already kicked yourself in the dick from the beginning, but it's okay, we can still make it work. Number 2. You will deeply and intimately familiarize yourself with the entire franchise. The games, the mangas, the comic books, other supplemental materials. Even watch a few nerdlinger YouTube video essays on the Buddhist and Shintoist subtext of the franchise. Number 3. You will watch many of the finest swords and sorcery fantasy movies to get a feel for how it ought to be done. In particular, I recommend watching Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy, and John Milius' Conan the Barbarian. And to hell with it, watch Legend as well. The phrase, make it like Lord of the Rings, is going to come up a lot here, and you ought to be saying it a lot. The tone of your movie should be much closer to Tolkien than Howard, but I think Conan should also be watched, to learn of scope and pathos, maybe not the violent content. I mean, hell, Basil Polidorus licensed the Conan music for 3 commercials for the Zelda franchise, so clearly he saw enough of a connection. Maybe you ought to take the hint. Number 4, speaking of tone, you will play the movie dead serious. And I mean dead serious. This is an epic fantasy, a chivalric romance. There's not a huge amount of blood and violence, but there's enough blood and violence and references and danger to warrant a solid PG-13, like Lord of the Rings. We will not have stupid ironic crap and stupid shit. Again, look at Lord of the Rings. There were whimsical parts, and there was comedic relief, but the overall narrative was treated with the respect and gravitas it deserves. This relates to number 5. There will be no modern pop music or any kind of modern music, or modern ironic references or anything like that. The Zelda franchise has some of the finest music ever composed for video games, and all of the truly great fantasy films had their own beautiful orchestral scores. So let's do something like that. Take some of those classic Koji Kondo songs and orchestrate them. Maybe you could somehow convince Hans Zimmer to give a damn about his work for once and he can arrange some songs. But I again stress we will not be having modern music. Not even Tangerine Dream, Ridley Scott. Modern music kind of flew in the Mario movie because the Mario franchise is much more child-friendly and silly and lighthearted, so I can kind of accept it there. But that shit does not belong here. If I hear, I don't know, fucking Taylor Swift or something in this movie, I will slam my head through the nearest piece of drywall. And this ties directly into number 6. Number 6. There will not be any stupid cartoons zigzagging around, saying idiotic catchphrases and shaking their asses. Yeah, simple as that. I don't need to say anything else. We want gravitas and pathos and seriousness, and you can't have that if you have some stupid plushy toy going yippity-skippity zigzagging around the screen shaking his ass. I've alluded to this once or twice, but cartoon characters shaking their asses in particular and zigzagging around and saying stupid shit in general, but shaking their asses in particular, that fills me with a violent rage that I can barely contain. It's just, that to me is just the lowest common denominator bullshit. It requires no effort or talent. It always gets a laugh from lowest common denominator mongoloids, and getting a laugh from the lowest common denominator mongoloids justifies the enormous, exorbitant salary of some Hollywood douchebag hack named Todd who came in to consult and has some ideas for marketability and toyeticness. No, we're not having that. Number 7. Since you've made the brilliant idea, sarcasm, to make this live action, whatever blonde Hollywood twink you hire to play the hero needs to get in the damn gym and bulk up. Let's look at what the various incarnations of Link are capable of physically doing. He can pull a longbow, do horseback archery, do standing backflips, do a 450 splash into ramming a sword through somebody's chest, pick up boulders the size of his head and throw them 30 yards, sumo wrestling, wrangling mountain goats with his bare hands, swinging sledgehammers in combat, swinging Zweihanders in combat, etc. And as far as I'm aware, most of these things were motion captured by actual gymnasts, kendo masters, and equestrians. All of whom I assume were pretty built. So my statement is, should the character not look like somebody who's physically capable of that? The dude should literally be built like an Olympic gymnast. Short and slender, but strong and muscular simultaneously. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but I have heard persistent rumors that during the development of Ocarina of Time, the character designer drew up some designs and they were rejected because And I quote, "Oh no, he looks too cool, he's too strong, he's too masculine, gotta pussify him by 20%. Ooh, think of the children." If that's the case, Nintendo, I say fuck that and go all out. Even despite the castrating schoolmarm on staff, whoever that was, those complaints were not totally followed because in the older games, he looked more masculine, he looked like he could fight. Nowadays, Nintendo seems to go out of their way to make Link look like a little bitch. And yes, I know it's not the same guy, I know it's different incarnations, but still. I feel like this is because the culture in the 90s was a bit more masculine and edgy, and nowadays everything is, well, fake and gay, as they say, and the character designs reflect that. This does not help the whole LGBT community glomming onto the Legend of Zelda franchise issue. And on that note, arguably the most important note, number 8, do whatever you have to do to end the gay shit for good. If these people get their way, they will kill the franchise that we love for good. The average casual is already under the impression that the game is about some little gay boy who gets butt-fucked, and that has to stop now. It has to stop yesterday. I want this movie to be for the Zelda franchise what Tim Burton's Batman did for the Batman franchise. Put some edge into it, put some red blood into its veins, revitalize it, make it cool again. So in addition to everything above, make it extremely clear that our boy is a staunch heterosexual. You don't necessarily have to show him banging all the women. I mean, you could, but you don't have to. Just do something to change the public perception of one of the greatest, most powerful heroes in video gaming being seen as an effeminate little baka-bazi boy. You do all that, you might make a good movie. You'll have my approval at least because, that means a lot. Just do exactly as I say and you'll succeed. Or you can make some fruity, pussified bullshit with pop songs and cartoon asses and some noodle-arm Koshek as the star. The choice is yours, people. I'm Larson Halleck, and I'm a ranting middle-aged man ranting about a video game movie. Deal with it.